Recently, my nephew told me he wanted to be a handyman or a contractor and expressed his interest in that, said he didn't want to do the welding school route. So being a good uncle in the construction trades, I went out and bought him some new tools. Before they had arrived, he had changed his mind and decided that construction work might be a little bit too hard and hot for him. But it got me thinking, and people have asked me for years how to get into this kind of work. It's easy enough. Just put an ad out there. When I started, it was a phone book. If you've ever heard of one of those, it was a big book of basically toilet paper sheets with phone numbers on it. That's how people used to Google for their contractors. We put a cheap ad in one of those and a cheap ad in the newspaper, and that was how I got started. And when you start into handyman or construction work, especially handyman work, you're going to start out doing a lot of small jobs that are barely going to pay the bills and maybe never get past that. But if you can figure out a niche that works for you, that's what I would recommend. I wouldn't say do the jack of all trades. It's worked out well for me, but it's difficult. And there are definitely years where it has not paid the bills as well as it needed to. But if you do it right, you work hard, you do good work for your customers, and hire good workers, which is near impossible in this line of work, you can make a pretty decent living. You can probably make up to $100,000 as a single operator. I've had plenty of years where I made close to that, a couple of years where I made more than that. But I've also had years where I made next to nothing. So, and not just in the beginning. There have been slow years when the economy goes bad and people stop fixing things. That can be bad for you. But if you're looking to get into this line of work, as a handyman in particular, you're going to need a few tools and you're going to need insurance. Make sure you get liability insurance before you set foot on your first job site. If you're lucky, no one will ever sue you. I've never been sued, but I've known a lot of contractors, a lot of handy people who have been sued after their work was done, either just because the homeowner never wanted to pay them or because they actually messed something up on the job and caused damage to the home, in which case if you have insurance, liability insurance, that'll cover you. But you're going to need a few tools, an impact driver, a skill saw, circular saw, oscillating tool or a sonic saw. You're going to need a sawzall for demo work. And that's really enough to get you started. You'll pick up tools here and there as you go, but if you have those couple of tools, the sonic saw, the circular saw, sawzall, and a drill or an impact driver, that'll get you through most jobs and you'll be able to do a pretty good job. You're going to want to pick up a miter saw at some point, but you can do a whole lot of what you can do with a miter saw with a circular saw. So get those couple tools. You can buy all those cheap and upgrade to better ones later, or you can start out with name brand tools now. But the work that you're going to want to focus on, what we did, I focused on bathroom remodels, and we did quite a few bathroom remodels that were $40,000, $50,000, with roughly half of that being profit to take home. But those take a long time to do. You make good money while you're doing it, but it takes a long time to do it. So dollars per hour may not be great, but it's at least a guaranteed paycheck. Had a thought there. Another tool that you're going to want to get is going to be some kind of a contractor vacuum, like a shop vac or a rigid vac, just some kind of a contractor portable vacuum. Other work you should definitely look at getting good at, which takes a while, but drywall repairs, you can charge $400 or $500 to repair a little hole in the drywall where a handle went through it, and that might take you all of, well, for a doorknob hole in the wall, that might take you 3 or 4 hours to do, and you can charge $400 or $500 for that pretty easily, usually. Window replacement is something that I've always tried to stay away from. I've done quite a bit of it, but it can be a lot more of a headache than it's worth typically. Replacing doors in homes, that's a good paycheck. Depending on where you're working, there are going to be different laws and different regulations and ordinances that are going to confine what you're able to do. But if where you live lets you do toilet replacements, that's a good paycheck. You can charge $300 or $400 for the labor side on a toilet replacement. A lot of times you'll replace the valves on there too, but make sure that you're allowed to do that in your state or location. Sometimes you have to be a plumber to do those. Some places they don't care if you have any kind of license to do those. That's a good paying job. Same thing with sink replacements. Typically anything with electrical, you're going to need to have an electric license behind you. If you live in a place that doesn't require that, ceiling fan installs, those are a good little paycheck. They're only going to be a couple $100, but it's still a decent paycheck for the time you put into it. I remember early on when I first started my business and was trying to find business so that I could say that I was actually in business, I would drive around to neighborhoods and look on all the roofs of the houses and see if any of the ridge cap shingles had been blown off the house or if they were missing the little whirly birds or vents after storms. And a lot of times you can do a reverse lookup on Google or one of the other search engines to find a phone number associated with that household, call the number and ask them if they'd like repairs done. And you'd be amazed how many people are receptive to that. I think we had a pretty high hit rate. If people answered their phone for those repairs, probably 85%, maybe even 90% of the people we called would let us do the work for them at whatever our quote was. They didn't ask for multiple bids. They would just hire us to do it. Now, we weren't crazy about it. We tried to stay within a reasonable area. But something like a ridge cap replacement where you're only replacing 3 or 4 tabs on a ridge cap, that would usually be a $400 or $500 job. The shingle costs you $3 or $4. The rest of that job is time and profit. I never liked doing trim installation. It always took too long to do it. Never paid enough for the time that you're putting into it. It's hard to justify charging $500 to trim out a door. But that's kind of what I needed to do if I was going to do a good job of it. Another repair that's done well for us, when people call and the drawers in their kitchen have fallen apart, you can almost always fix a broken drawer or fix the rails, the slides, drawer slides, for $10 or $15 worth of parts to get those working, and you can charge $200 or $300 for those kind of repairs as well. But eventually you're going to want to focus in on an area, find something that you like doing, whether that's drywall repairs or door installations or windows or whatever the thing is you like to do, and market your business that way. Hardwood flooring is a good business to be in, but there's a lot of ins and outs of that, and there are a lot of ways you can install a $20,000 floor incorrectly and have it come back to bite you later. So don't do things that you don't know how to do without doing some proper research on it. I didn't learn that by experience. That's just something I've learned through other contractors that I've seen have some pretty big mess ups. So be careful, make sure you know what you're doing. And that's why I like to stay away from some of those specialized lines of work. Same thing with putting down tile. Tile's a lot more forgiving, in my opinion, than a lot of the other flooring products, so long as you prep the floor properly. Tile's a pretty easy one to do. I should really put together a proper list of the most profitable jobs I've done over the years. But thinking back on it, fences, we've done quite a few custom and one-off fence designs, wooden privacy and other things. But wooden privacy fences, that's been a good profit maker for us for years now. All kinds of custom fences, hog panel, wire fences, frame, I don't know what you'd even call them, frame fences with hog panel sections. Those have done well for us. Minor plumbing repairs that we're allowed to do within our licensing have done well for us. Emergency repairs when someone's house is flooding in the winter. I don't believe in gouging people or trying to charge as much as you can for it, but at a point there is some convenience fee charged if you're going to wake up and get out to their house in the middle of the night to do a plumbing and drywall repair. Those can be a couple $1,000s for a small job. Tile installation has been the most consistently profitable work that I've done over the last 20 years, probably. Fencing would be next on that list, and then minor bathroom and kitchen type repairs. This video is just kind of a rough idea of what you might do if you get in to be a handyman. You know, think about the kind of stuff you enjoy doing. If you like working with your hands and doing trim work, that might be your niche. That might be the thing you do that makes you a living. I'll try to put out a video later, a little bit more in depth on what you need and kind of how to go about it. As far as the marketing side of things, anybody getting into it now, you're pretty lucky compared to what I had. Back when I got into it, there was no such thing as free advertising. I had to pay for everything. And a lot of the ads fell flat on their face and didn't do anything. Now, if you're going to be marketing this, you can get on TikTok, Pinterest, Snapchat, whatever these face-place sites are. There are all kinds of good ways to market now that don't cost you anything. You can pay to promote your posts or whatever, but you don't have to. So long as you have a Faceplace or a MySpace or any of those kind of things, you can have a page for your business. it's not a bad idea to have a website, but you definitely don't need a website. You don't need to pay for the domain hosting or any of that. Just get a faceplace site and a page on there, and that's where you're going to post photos of the before and afters of jobs you've done. And don't be afraid to venture out. Just because you say you're a contractor or a handyman, if somebody calls you and says they need the Bradford pear cut out of their yard after a storm, go out and get a chainsaw. Give them a bid. If they like your bid, go buy a chainsaw and get to work on it. Don't be afraid to take jobs that aren't exactly what you're looking for if you're trying to make a living doing this. It may take you 3 or 4 years before you get where you're consistently profitable doing it. It probably took me a year, but I had a lot of friends, a lot of contacts going into it from my dad's cabinet shop. So we had a few built-in customers in the family, and certainly I've done a lot of work for my family. So that has helped a lot over the years, early on especially, having family that needed stuff repaired that weren't afraid to pay for it. It can be difficult, but if you're willing to put the hard work in, it can be rewarding as well. So I don't know how this video is going to come across. I'm just putting this out to try to help. I'll try to put a couple links below that have some of the tools in it and some of the things you might need to know. But if you have questions, drop a comment. I try to read all those and reply to them. And I'd like to help you. With it if that's what you want to do. If you want to be a contractor or a handyman, it can be done. You can do it. I think one of the guys that worked for me, he called me one day and he was asking for my advice to help him get started as a contractor. And I've helped a couple of guys that worked for me over the years start their own businesses. Not any involvement of mine, just some information. And he said, I want to run a cleaning business and a pressure washing business. And I said, no, I've tried that. There's no way that'll ever work for you. And he said, well, I want to do it anyway. So we talked through it and figured out the licensing, and he didn't really need any licensing for it, but we kind of talked through it. And fast forward a year later, I think he's making more money than I ever made. And all he does is spray water on buildings. I know it's not that simple, but essentially it is. So there are niches as a contractor of any sort where you can make a living doing different things. And I don't know how he got into it or how he made it as big as he did, but pressure washing was his business, and I think still is. And he does fine doing that. I know another gentleman that has a lawn mowing business, and he probably makes close to 6 figures mowing lawns. So you can make $100,000 a lot of different ways in it. I chose to do the handyman and contractor route for years. I don't do as much of it anymore, but that's what I did, and that's how I survived for the last 20 years. So it can be done, and if you stick to it, don't be afraid to ask for advice. If there's a job you want to take on but you don't know how to do it, certainly you've got YouTube these days. I didn't have that. I had forums. You'd look up words on pages and you'd read pages and pages of words to try to figure out how to do a job. Or you'd call another contractor and see if you could talk him into helping you get through the process. But get on YouTube. There's a lot of good information there. So if there's a job that someone calls you out to put a mailbox in and you don't know anything about it, you don't know how high to mount a box, you can get all that information at your fingertips on the phone that you're watching this video on probably. So there's a lot of information out there, and there are people out there that are willing to help you. So if you just come at it with the right attitude and ask for help, there are a lot of people out there that will help you do this. So I hope this was helpful to you. If you'd like to see anything else related, please drop it in the comments below, and I'll do my best to make a video for you. So hope you've enjoyed it, and thanks for watching.